Zatzal, the Boston Rabbi, taught us that one of the subjects of Torah is emotions. In addition to laws and values and a worldview, metaphysics, also a Torah of emotions. How one is supposed to feel on different occasions and about different facets of the world, facets of life, occasions to rejoice, occasions to mourn, occasions for introspection. And with respect to the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, he taught us that there are two different emotions, two different relationships. And Chazal were very precise in designating them with two different titles. One is Zecher LaChurban, and the other is Zecher LaMikdash. And although sometimes we don't keep the consistency of those titles, in Chazal they are very clear and distinct. Zecher LaChurban means to remember the destruction. And we have many customs with which we implement that. The Ta'anesim, the fast days of the year, except for one, except for Tanis Esther, are all focused on, and of course Yom Kippur, are focused on stages in the destruction of the temple. And at a chasana, I think everyone has the custom to break a glass. Some have the custom that they put ashes on the forehead of the chassan. And in many homes, you'll find a square area of wall that's unfinished, because my house can't be finished, that the Beis HaMikdash doesn't exist. These are all expressions of mourning. Also the egg on the Seder plate, one of the implications of it is Zecher LaChurban. But then you have Zecher LaMikdash. For example, at the Passover Seder, you have Korach. Zecher LaMikdash Kehillel. My Hillel said, what did Hillel do? He took matzah and mor and Pesach and made a sandwich and ate it, and we're going to eat it the way he ate it. That is not introducing an element of mourning into the Seder. Or we take a lulav and esrog, 7 minus 1 days, not on Shabbos, but for 7 days. According to the Torah, that's a law only in the Beis HaMikdash. Everywhere else in the world, it was only 1 day. Why are we doing it for 7 minus 1? Because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai felt that we should do what was done in the Mikdash and do it everywhere. That is not introducing an element of mourning into Sukkot. For many Mefarshim, when we count the days between Pesach and Shavuos, 49 days of the Omer, since the Torah tells us to count from the day on which the Omer offering is presented in the temple, and we don't have the offering in the temple, that whole counting is D'Rabbanan. It's only rabbinic. We don't have the trigger that the Torah specified. Some even hold that since Shavuos is the day after the 49 count, and the whole 49 count is rabbinic, so the whole holiday of Shavuos is rabbinic. It's not deraisa b'zman. There is such a day. We do it because that's what was done in the time of the temple. It's not for the sake of mourning. The mourning period during Sfiras HaOmer is not because we can't count the Omer, but because of the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva who were killed. What does Zecher LaMikdash mean? It means that something of the Mikdash still exists. It's not totally lost. There's a remnant, a sarid, that we still possess. And we realize its potential. We relate to it by doing mitzvahs like they did then. We preserve that memory. And this is something which is important. If we want to show Kadosh Baruch Hu that we appreciate what we don't have, one way we show that is by showing how precious the little that we do have is. We have to think of it as a little ember or a little echo of what the Beis HaMikdash was. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, okay, I took away the large enterprise, I took away the large proposition. Let's see how you treat the ember. If you treat the ember with love, if you treat it with care, if you realize its potential, then that will be a schus that'll give you back the main enterprise. And we have to look carefully at what we do possess and see how it is realizing the remaining reality of the Beis HaMikdash in order to show that we appreciate it. The Gemara says that Tfilos keneged korbanos tiknum, that the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, who established for us the order of prayer 3 times a day, at times 4 times on Shabbos, holiday prayers, they did it by making it corresponding to the sacrifices. Notice they don't say bimkom, in place of. They say corresponding to. The Shulchan Aruch, when he cites this Gemara, uses the word bimkom, in place of. But the Gemara doesn't say that. It says corresponding to. The reason is because to think that the Anshe Knesset Gedolah created prayer to replace the missing sacrifices is a double mistake. First of all, they were at the beginning of Ayasheni of the Second Temple. That means prayer and the sacrifices were contemporaneous for 420 years. If it was a replacement, you don't need both of them at the same time. Secondly, the idea of the temple is basically the idea of a place of prayer. Not a place of sacrifices, but a place of prayer. There's a famous verse in Yeshayahu. It's famous because there's a popular song that we sing with those words. I will bring them into my holy mountain, and I will cause them to rejoice in my house of prayer. Their sacrifices will be acceptable to me on the altar, my altar. Because my house will be called the house of prayer for all peoples. So it's a house of prayer at the beginning, a house of prayer at the end, and in the middle, it says there are sacrifices. Sacrifices are an activity that take place there, but the title is Beis Tefillah, a house of prayer. And if you go further back in time, go back to Shlomo HaMelech, Solomon, who built the first temple in Jerusalem. When he finishes the construction, he has a dedication, a long speech in which he dedicates the building. And if you look at it, the only activity associated with the building is tefillah, is prayer. From his dedication, you would not know that there were sacrifices there at all. Obviously, Shlomo HaMelech and Yeshayahu saw prayer and sacrifices as part of one coordinated performance, one integrated institution. So when Chazal created the order for prayer, of course they made it to correspond with the sacrifices. With King Solomon on record and Isaiah the prophet on record, they followed that lead and created it to coordinate. That means we have to understand that prayer and sacrifices are one coordinated performance. It's one sacrifice of the nation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Before Chazal set up this correspondence of prayer, a Jew could say, it's July 10th. He sleeps in till noon. Is he represented in what's going on in the temple? Oh, yes, he is. Because once a year, in the month of Adar, he pays his dues. His half shekel went to the temple. Every sacrifice that's offered throughout the entire year is offered in his name also, because he paid his dues. Anshe Knesset Gedolah said that's not enough. Paying your dues once a year is not enough. What we want is a universal national sacrifice. So the priests in the temple do their part because the Torah itself designated them to have that performance. But the rest of the Jewish people have to be involved. And we're involved in that sacrifice through prayer. Then when the temple is destroyed and we no longer have the sacrifices, prayer remains for us from the coordinated performance. It's what we have left of the compound. It's not that prayer replaces the missing sacrifices. It's A and B. B's gone, so we replace it with A. No, it was an A plus B to start with. And what we have left of A and B is A. But that means we have to experience prayer as a splinter of a more complex, more compelling, more complete reality of which we have a little piece. And that's why in every prayer, weekdays, Shabbos, and holidays, in every prayer we pray for the rebuilding of the temple twice. And the bracha of Ritzei and the Hiratzon that comes afterwards, because we feel it to be only a splinter. So in addition to mourning the lost sacrifices and studying what they were and trying to relate to them and feel what they once were and what we don't have, we also have to approach prayer as something left from the sacrifices, and we should treat it with that preciousness that what we want to receive in return with a rebuilding. We have a little hint of it still alive with us, and we appreciate it for that reason. There's an expression in the Slichos, Ein shiur rak haTorah hazos. It describes the destruction of the temple and the city of Jerusalem and the exile of the Jewish people, absent even from the land of Israel. And it says the only remainder we have is this Torah. I can say for myself, for many years, I took it in a very simplistic and incorrect way. Well, we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, we don't have Yerushalayim, we don't have the temple, we don't have the Korbanos, we don't have the mitzvahs Athluyas Ba'aretz, the mitzvahs special areas of Israel. I'm living in New York, I'm living in Boston, I'm living in Baltimore, but I have the Torah. The Torah is very precious. The Torah is very important in a certain sense. The Torah could be offset the loss, so make sure you understand how precious the Torah is. But that's not right. The words say, Ein shiur rak haTorah hazos. The only leftover, the only remainder we have of that reality is this Torah. So it isn't B replacing A, it's that this is a leftover. Now how is our Torah that we have, that we study, a remainder of the Beis HaMikdash? So let's go back to what we say at the end of every tefillah, of every Shemona Esrei. Yiratzon, Shehibana Beis HaMikdash, B'mheira B'yimeinu, V'sein Chalkeinu B'sorasecha. May it be your will that the temple should be speedily rebuilt in our days, and give us our portion in your Torah. What's that doing there? Why is portion in Torah relevant to a petition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should rebuild the temple? What's the relevance? And then it goes on to say the Korbanos should be acceptable to you as they were in former days. The answer is that the Beis HaMikdash, among other things, was a conduit through which Torah came into the world. And with that gone, some of that Torah that came in through that pipeline is not present to us. And the symptom of it is that when the Sanhedrin had its headquarters in the Lishkas HaGozis, the Lishkas HaGozis was a chamber. You have the wall around the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. One portion of the wall was the back wall of a chamber, which had extra walls outside, and that's where the Sanhedrin sat. It sat in a chamber, one of whose walls was the wall of the Beis HaMikdash itself. As long as the Sanhedrin sat there, anywhere in the world, a Jewish court could judge capital cases. Now, because of the Roman persecutions, the Sanhedrin went into Golus, its own exile, and went from place to place. The minute it left that position, that location, nowhere in the world could capital cases be tried. Why? Because in a capital case, you're judging whether, Rahman al-Hassan, a Jew should live or die. That's a gigantic responsibility. Without a connection, that connection to Torah coming from heaven, from Shemayim, the responsibility of killing a Jew is just not something we can exercise. So the Beis HaMikdash meant a certain connection, a certain flow of Torah into the world. So on the one hand, we have to mourn the fact that that flow, that particular connection has been severed. But on the other hand, the Torah that we do have is the remainder of that flow. It came from there. We still have that result of it. That being the case, to approach Torah as a serid, a splinter of what the Beis HaMikdash gave us, means that we appreciate what the Beis HaMikdash was. Aliyah L'Regel, 3 times a year, Jews made a pilgrimage to the temple, presented themselves in the Azara, and to offer the sacrifice there. Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, the 3 pilgrimage festivals. What happened when they appeared there? So there's the pasuk says, all the males have to appear in the Beis HaMikdash. The word in Hebrew is yera'eh, and Chazal darshan it 2 ways. Yera'eh means to be seen. He will be seen. And yira would mean he will see. And Chazal darshan it both ways. To equate HaKadosh Baruch Hu seeing us and our seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ben Abachai says, what you see there is HaKadosh Baruch Hu seeing you. You come there to be seen, so he sees you. You come there to see, what are you coming there to see? You're coming there to see how he sees you. You see a mirror of yourself, but not a mirror like on the wall, which shows you back only what you see. No, the mirror you get at the Beis HaMikdash is what he sees. You get a peek at his vision of you. That means you get to see yourself as you really are. Not as you see yourself through a haze of wishes and hopes and fears and rationalizations and excuses. No. 3 times a year, the opportunity to get an external vision of yourself that's real, that's true, that's absolute. What a precious opportunity. How often do we find that we don't see ourselves realistically? The truth is, we don't find that so often. What we find very often is that the other fellow is not seeing himself realistically. That we see all the time. We're very quick, very sharp, very sensitive to other people fooling themselves. We can point it out very quickly, very easily. It just doesn't occur to us that maybe, if he's fooling himself, and he can't tell. He can't tell. I'm very smart. I can see that he's fooling himself, but he can't tell. Maybe also I'm fooling myself about myself, and I can't tell. And other people are pointing a finger at me in private and saying, poor Gottlieb, doesn't understand what he's doing, what he's thinking, how he's presenting himself. So to have that opportunity would be enormous. The temple doesn't exist. We can't go in. We can't have that double vision that he sees us and we see ourselves we see him seeing us. Is there anywhere that we have a leftover? A little sarid, a little splinter of that opportunity? The answer is yes. And if the answer isn't springing to your mind automatically, then take this to heart. It's in a Rebbe-Talmud relationship. That's where it exists. Because when you have a Rebbe and you invest in a close relationship with him, you share things with him, share mitzvahs with him, share simchas and Rahman al-Son, avelis with him, and you go to him for eitzes, he knows you. And not only does he know you, but he knows you and he sees you with siyasat shemaya. And then when you ask him for reactions, ask him for his perception, ask him for eitzes, you're getting a little bit of what was available at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a vision of how you look to him. The Siva Shalom asks, what do Chazal mean when they say that we have to have emunas chachamim? Emunas chachamim means we should trust the sages. What is it that we are supposed to trust in the sages? Are we supposed to trust that they are really sages, the real Talmidei Chachamim, the genuine understanding of Torah? He says, no, of course not. Don't trust that. Test it. Talk to them, listen to their shiurim, see what they've written. Argue and debate with them, discuss with them, and you'll see for yourself whether they're genuine Torah scholars or not. Now, he wrote that sefer for people who grew up in the normal Jewish educational system and who by the time they were 16 or 17 were already fluent in reading Talmud and were studying Talmud in some depth. I'm not recommending this to a person who's now sitting down with an Art Scroll translation, that he should test his Rebbe or the leaders of the generation and see whether they make sense to him or not. Not yet qualified for that. But the Siva Shalom is explaining a statement in the Talmud that people have to have trust of their scholars. What trust is the Talmud talking about? It's not talking about trust in their scholarship, that you can test on your own. What about their character? Is it that we should trust they have good character? He says, no. Interact with them. See how they deal with you, see how they deal with other people, see how they deal with the community, and you'll be able to see for yourself whether they have good character or not. So what is it we are supposed to trust? He said, when a person takes responsibility for a community, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives that person what's called siyata d'shmaya, the help of heaven, that he should give to that community what that community needs. That's something you can't test. You can't notice that with your own observation. And that means that whether they appreciate it or not, they are getting what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants for them. That's for a community. The same thing is true for the individual. If you designate someone as your Rebbe, and you go to the person and share with that person, when you ask for help from that person, either a perception of who you are, how you're doing, what your needs are, or advice as to how to progress, that person will be given siyata d'shmaya, and you'll have feedback from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The same idea, if enormously reduced in intensity, the same idea is what you got when you went to the Beis HaMikdash and you saw how HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees you. The holidays are called Mo'adim. The word Moed in Hebrew means meeting. A meeting between at least two parties. The Ohel Moed, where Moshe Rabbeinu went out to, the tent of meeting, is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacted with him. They conversed one to another. We had 3 pilgrimage festivals where we went up to the Beis HaMikdash and presented ourselves. Is there anything left of that for us? Any splinter of that reality still available to us? I'm going to tell you a Pri Tzadik, and from the Pri Tzadik you'll get the answer to the question. All of the holidays are called Mo'adim, meeting times. How do they express that quality? So the 3, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, we said you go to the temple. What about Rosh Hashanah? So Rosh Hashanah is a very interesting din. The shofar should not be gilded with gold. You should not decorate the shofar with gold. Why not? Well, we know that on Yom Kippur, the high priest, when he went into the Holy of Holies, could not wear the 4 golden garments. He had to take them off. Why? Because the golden calf is the great accuser of the Jewish nation. We are living out the consequences of the golden calf to this day. Pasuk says, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when Moshe Rabbeinu says, please forgive them, he said, I won't destroy them, but they're going to be living out the consequences of the golden calf forever, until the ultimate redemption. And you can't convert an antagonist, an accuser, into a defender. So to wear golden vestments and go into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur would be to take that metal, that quality, which we failed at and could be used as an accuser against us to ask for defense and to ask for mercy. We cannot do that. Okay, now back to Rosh Hashanah. We start with Rosh Hashanah. So you can't put gold on the shofar. Why not? What has the shofar got to do with the high priest on Yom Kippur? Because Chazal say that when you blow the shofar, it is kilefnai v'lefnim dami. It's as if you're standing in the Holy of Holies. The impact of the shofar is so profound, it's as if when the person blows and we listen and we fulfill the commandment, it's as if we're all standing in the Holy of Holies. It's a virtual aliyah the regal. It's as if we had gone up to Jerusalem and done something which every other Jew can't do. We'd all be standing in the Holy of Holies, and therefore you can't put gold on the shofar. That means that when you blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, it's a virtual aliyah the regal. You're going up to be in the Beis HaMikdash. What about Yom Kippur? Says the Pri Tzadik, the Torah tells us that on Yom Kippur we're supposed to do tshuva and purify ourselves. The pasuk says the purification is lifnei Hashem titharu. Purify yourself before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Pri Tzadik, that means when you're standing in the shul on Yom Kippur and you're doing tshuva, it's as if you're standing in the temple. So you have another virtual aliyah l'rei. Fine. That's all of those. What about Shabbos? In Parshas Emor, the first of the Mo'adim is Shabbos. True, the Ramban, for those who know, is questions whether Shabbos really belongs there, because whether it should be called a Moed or not. But the Pri Tzadik is not worried about that issue. It's called a Moed. The first of the Mo'adim there is Shabbos. So he says, Shabbos has the same quality of meeting, but here the meeting is affected in the opposite fashion. Because the Pasuk says, Shabbos hi b'chol moshvoseichem. It's Shabbos in all of your dwelling places. And he points out that legally that's totally unnecessary. There's no thought that Shabbos would be kept only in the land of Israel. It's not a mitzvah that's dependent upon the land. It's like kashrus, or like tefillin, or like tzedakah. So why does the Pasuk go out of its way to tell me that Shabbos hi b'chol moshvoseichem? To tell me that the moed, the meeting of a Kodesh Baruch Hu with Klal Yisrael, takes place on Shabbos also. Not just in the temple in Jerusalem, it takes place on Shabbos also. But the difference is that in all the other holidays, we go to him. And Shabbos, he comes to us. Shabbos, he b'chol moshvoseichem. So the meeting is engineered by his coming to us. And we still have that. That has not lapsed. That has not been attenuated or weakened in any way. So when we think of the Beis HaMikdash as a place to meet with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and we feel that we don't have it, we have to appreciate what we have on Shabbos, that in Shabbos we have it as well. When you sit down to the Sudas, you have to feel this is what we have left of eating kodshim in the Beis HaMikdash. To eat the korbanos, the sacrifices in the temple area. That's something, harabais, that's something which we still have a remnant of. And indeed, when I was on my way in, a long time ago, we said L'cha Dodi on Friday nights. Something about the structure of the poem was hard for me. Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha, the holy place of the king, the city of the kingdom, Jerusalem. Get up, exit from your overturned state, your destroyed state. It's enough for you sitting in the valley of tears. He, God, will have mercy upon you. With asking there that the temple should be rebuilt, that Jerusalem should be rebuilt, it's Shabbos. None of that can happen on Shabbos. You can't build a temple on Shabbos. You can't build Yerushalayim on Shabbos. Why are we asking for that? And then, having asked for it, the next words are, let's go out and greet Shabbos. I'm talking about the fact that we don't have a temple, and we don't have Yerushalayim. That itself is problematic. And then, go to greet Shabbos, it's like talking about one thing and then turning your face to another direction and talking about something else. How do the two fit together? It's nari me'ofa. Shake yourself off from the dirt. Kumi, get up. Livshi bigdei, my people, dress in your clothes of glory. Ayat ben Yishai ben Halachmi, the Mashiach will come and take you out of Golos. But that can't happen on Shabbos. Tchum Shabbos will stop you. You can't go beyond a certain distance in Shabbos. You're not allowed to go. You can't do it. And then l'chadoydi l'kras kala. So I asked my Rebbe's brother Zachronim Levrocha about what we're asking for. How can you ask for it when it can't happen? Why are you asking Friday evening for something that can't happen on Friday evening? Rebbe's brother explained to me that in the creation there are three dimensions: a dimension of space, a dimension of time, and a dimension of soul. And each dimension has its own focus of Kedusha. In space, it's the Beis HaMikdash, and in time, it's Shabbos, and in soul, it's the Jewish people. And they create a shleimus together. When you have all three together, it's like the three legs of a three-legged stool. A stool can stand on three legs. Not on two, but on three it can stand. So, when you have the three together, you have a shleimus, a completed entity, which then carries a certain weight, carries a certain significance for Klal Yisrael. Okay, comes Friday afternoon, you're sliding into Shabbos, you realize Shabbos is coming, you have your own Jewish neshama, so you have the Kedusha of the Jew. It's coming to the time of Kedusha, which is Shabbos. When you have 2 out of 3, then you can't help but long for the third. We're under no illusions. We know that even if all the political realities would change and we would have the ability to go to Yerushalayim and rebuild the temple, Friday night you can't do it. You can't do it on Shabbos. But we can't help but long for it because we have 2 out of the 3 and the third is not here. Okay, so in those stanzas, we're longing for that reality which we don't have. And then we turn and say, we're not turning from the one to the other. It's as if I'm looking at a vision, and the vision is so painful, so disturbing, so difficult, I cover my eyes, I turn my away, I look at something else which is more pleasant and easier to appreciate. No, I'm taking that longing and I'm realizing that Shabbos answers that longing, that Shabbos provides me with something of what the temple, Yerushalayim, gave us at one time. It's the meeting place between us and the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and that meeting is still available for us. And therefore one has to prize Shabbos with the same feelings of loss for what we don't have. We have to have a special feeling of preciousness for what we still do have. I want to finish with two pieces of mussar. I don't like to do this, but I think that it's necessary. I don't usually do this on Tisha B'Av. In the name of the Mashgiach of Yeshivas Kamenetz, and of Asher Weiss, Shnehem, Shlita, it's been pointed out that there's a cause of the Churban Abayis which has not been publicized. It's Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi says explicitly that one of the two, this is Yuma, Daf Dal Ramad Beis, it says there are two reasons for the Churban Bayis Sheni. One is Sinas Chinam, that we all know about, causes hatred, and the other is Chemdas Mamon. Chemdas Mamon, an overwhelming desire for money. And there's a Chasam Sofer, which I heard from my Chavrusa. We have a medrash that says that in Egypt, in the plague of darkness, 4/5 of the Jews died. They didn't merit leaving the land of Egypt. Why not? What is it that prevented them from participating in the Exodus? Says the Chasam Sofer, because there were two tests coming up, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu saw that they would not be able to pass those two tests, and therefore they couldn't live to see the Exodus. What are the two tests? The 9th and 10th plagues were the two tests. The Choshech and Makas Bechoros. Each one had in it a test, and they would have failed. What are the tests? During Makas Choshech, the darkness, the whole land of Egypt was dark. The Egyptians were not only plunged into darkness, but they were immobilized. There was some physical force which held them immobile. The Jews were free, mobile, and wherever they went, they saw. They had light. And the Medrash says that Hakadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu told them, go into the Egyptian houses and search out where they keep their valuables. Find where they keep their valuables. Just look. Don't take. Now you're talking to people who have been slaves for 90 years, bitterly oppressed, tortured, and of course, they created construction projects for the Egyptians. I can't resist just pointing out, not the pyramids. How many emails do I get? Rabbi, Judaism says they built the pyramids and we know they didn't. It doesn't say they built the pyramids. They built storehouses, store cities, treasure cities. Those are not pyramids. Pizon and Ramses. And they didn't get paid a nickel. Generations didn't get paid anything. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to tell the people, go to all the houses, look where they keep all their valuables, but don't touch. That was a test that those people couldn't pass. That's one of the reasons they died. And the second test, what's going to happen in Makas Bechoros, the death of the firstborn? The Torah testifies there was chaos in the streets. People were running through the streets, wailing and screaming, panic, confusion. What does the Torah say to the Jew? Stay indoors. Stay indoors. Don't go outside. What happens when a siren wails and an ambulance pulls up? All the doors open, all the windows open, everybody's on the street to see what's happening. What's happening? No. There's going to be panic, pandemonium in the streets. Stay inside. Don't go out. Don't look. Don't participate. These people, these Jews, couldn't pass those two tests. And that's why they didn't make it. And I think we should meditate whether we're passing those two tests. Are we passing the test of Chemdas Mamon? Some of you are still in the cradle stage where you're not responsible to support a family. And for some, it's almost heresy to point out that you will get to the stage where you'll have to work and support a family. I can get into terrible trouble saying that in the yeshiva. But it's true. Almost all of you will someday be responsible to support a family. And one cheshbon nefesh, one soul examination you'll have to go through is, why am I working the hours that I'm working? For what? What does it produce for me? Tuition for my children to go to school? Check. The ability to celebrate holidays with my family the way it should be celebrated? Check. To provide for those who depend upon me, my wife, my children, what they need, what's important to them? Check. To buy a new model car because my neighbor got a new model car and I'm embarrassed to go out. He has a 2017 Lexus and I only have a 2015 Lexus. So I've got to put on an extra 10 hours a week to make the money to buy the latest car? X. No, not for that. What are you working for? What are you dedicating yourself to? In America, they have a terrible, terrible false expression, time is money. Time isn't money, time is life. Time is all you've got. Don't trade life for money. If you're working to earn money, make a cheshbon nefesh. How many hours do I need to work for the money that I really need? And make sure that the social pressure isn't pushing you to work for what you don't need. That's the test of makas choshech. And the test of makas bechoros, it has many facets. How many are very careful to keep up with the latest political maneuvers? Who's in and who's out at the White House? And who got fired? And who said what about whom? So what? Are you going to contribute to that? Are you going to make any difference? Are you going to make any practical decisions? There isn't another election for president for 4 years. 3.5 years. Are you keeping notes to make sure to tell who you should vote for, who you shouldn't vote for? Makes absolutely no difference for your life. Then turn it off. You're just rushing outside on the night of the destruction of the firstborn to see what's happening. No reason to do that. There's nothing in it. And worse than that is technology. And if this is new to you, then it's something that you need to know, that this is the way the Torah looks at technology. Technology is a tool which has to be justified. It's not automatic. It's not a right. It's not in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. You can check. Technology is a dangerous tool which you may have to use. You can look it up. Radiologists in hospitals have a shorter lifespan. If you're doing radiology, you're going to have a shorter lifespan. Some people say, that's my profession, that's what I want to do, and I'll take that risk. But everybody knows that he's doing something that's risky. Technology is risky. Even the non-Jewish world has publicized the problems of addiction and also waste of time and degrading your mind and your understanding. If you read the blogs, you are in danger of losing your intelligence. The blogs are not for the intelligent. Blogs are for people for whom an idea lasts 30 seconds or maybe a minute. If you got it in a minute, good. Otherwise, go to the next blog. That doesn't give you the ability to understand anything. Anything. So, a person who has a need to use technology, in particular with the internet, there can be such a need. You go to your Rav, to your Rebbe, like I said before. You want to see this the way Kodesh Baruch Hu sees it. Do I really need it? How much do I need it? What particular internet resources do I need? And if I need them, then I use them. I use them with the confidence that I have a heter, a permission from the Torah to do this. But it's a permission, no more than that. Let's imagine a person who's sick. And because he's sick, he has to eat pork. He has to eat it. The rabbi tells him, because of your disease, because of your health, you have to eat it. Would he go to another Jew and say, you don't know what you're missing. The taste of pork, you have no idea how good it is. A bacon cheeseburger, that's just heaven. He wouldn't do that because it's a crutch because he's sick. Doesn't take pride in the fact that he can eat pork. Okay, you got the latest app. Your computer does 1 million operations a second. Mine does 10 million a second. Beat ya! And mine's faster than a blink of an eye. Can I tell the difference? You're not proud of the fact that you have a very fine computer. It's like your pork. You need it. You need it. You have a permission slip. For you, it's right. But it's not something you're proud of. You use it. But tznius, in privacy, because it's something that you need. That's not running out on the night of the destruction of the firstborn to see what's happening in the street and being part of it, knowing the latest thing that's happening in the street. They aren't relevant to us. They aren't relevant to us. They're just distractions. They're ways we lose our focus. We lose our real grip on our real identity. These two tests, money and being, defining ourselves in terms of how much of the non-Jewish world we've been able to incorporate and to make use of, those two things eat away at the neshama, often unconsciously. We ourselves don't know. It's time to have a cheshbon hanefesh. The reason for a tanis, says the Rambam in Hilchos Tanios, is for cheshbon hanefesh, to analyze oneself and to see where one can improve. These things don't happen by chance. They happen because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is looking at us and asking, are you trying to come close to me? If you're trying to come close to me, then I will extend myself to come close to you. Kodesh Baruch Hu should give us the ability to appreciate what he left us, to experience its preciousness, and also to make the cheshbon hanefesh that's necessary so that we can help to bring Mashiach.